Hi, I'm Grant, this is Dad Crafted, and this is how I got organized with a French cleat system for my tools in my shop. Alright, let's go. So, this is kind of embarrassing. My shop organization is kind of a mess. I have this French cleat wall, and it was supposed to solve all my problems. But really, as you can see, everything on this wall is just kind of a dumping ground for random crap. And since it's in the background of all my videos, I really want to try to redo this, try to make it make sense, and then try to make some new actual French cleat hanging device things for my different tools, some that will actually fit instead of just being pointless little shelves. So let's start by explaining how this works. The French cleats are all cut with my saw at a 45-degree angle, and the pointy side, or the tallest side, is away from the wall. Then, if you make something like this crappy old shelf contraption I made, you just attach another 45 piece to the back and make sure that that point is, the lowest point is close to the wall. So then when you sit it in here, gravity takes care of the rest, and you've got yourself a little shelf. Just set whatever you want to on top of it. I don't have this on camera because I made these a few years ago before I had a YouTube channel. But basically, get a 4 foot by 8 feet, a 4 foot by 8 foot sheet of plywood. I cut at a 45-degree angle with my circular saw about a 3.5 inch piece. This bottom is the only one that is actually at a flat 90 degree. Everything else is 45. Then I just measured 2.5 inches all the way up with lines across the plywood, and again run that circular saw all the way across. I use a straight edge, like an 8 foot long piece of 1/2 inch ply to make sure that my cuts were straight, but basically just make that cut all the way and you've got tons of 8 foot strips, and then you can adorn your whole wall. You can do like I did and do 30 whole feet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way down, or you can just make a small section of 4 foot rails. The best part about this is it accommodates basically any shop size, and it makes all of your storage solutions pretty much mobile and adjustable whenever you feel like moving them. Now let's get into the actual gadgets.
Alright, so let's start with my DeWalt leaf blower, since it's new and it needs somewhere to hang on the wall. So I'm starting off by sketching out the outside shape for it to hang, and here I'm getting some scrap wood out of my scrap wood cart because everything that you'll see in this video was totally made of scrap wood. I bought no extra wood for this at all. So anyway, I just start cutting down some random scrap pieces, and then I'm drawing the shape that I previously drew out that matches that guard piece that goes around the leaf blower that guards the battery. And then I cut out a bunch of little pieces that will basically act as a spacer between the front guard and the plate that's going to rest on the wall, so that the leaf blower's actually got a spot to hook into and rest. This will all make sense once you see it here in a minute. Little trick here to fill your holes, just put a little wood glue, run your sander over it without dust collection, boom. And then I've got a bunch of these little 45-degree angled offcuts for the cleat wall, so I'm just screwing one onto the back, that way it'll be able to rest on the cleats that I've already attached to the wall. For the Orbital Sander, I start by taking some basic measurements just to figure out the size I need. My basic structure here is going to be a sort of box rectangle. The idea here is that there will be some shelves for sandpaper to sit in, and then the Orbital Sander will rest on top. I take some quick measurements to figure out where the shelves need to go on both the wall panels. And then I raise my blade up about 1/4 inch, and I'm using my table saw sled to make cuts where all those shelves need to go. That'll make slots that my hardboard will fit in, and then as long as everything lines up good, the hardboard should rest and we should have a level shelf. I'm just ripping down a bunch of 1/8 inch hardboard. Shouldn't have to worry about supporting too much weight because this is just going to hold sandpaper discs, but just cutting them down to fit inside those slots. Alright, pretty good form fit here. I've got a couple extra squares and I don't want to just put it across the bottom, so I think I'm going to do the same thing and cut out a little lip here on each side of this so that one can sit flush up in there. I'll just glue and nail it in place and have an extra shelf for sandpaper. And then my glue up here is really pretty straightforward and simple. My slots were not too big, so these were pretty nice and snug. And then I just drilled some holes, countersink, a little bit of wood glue, screwed everything together. And then this piece is probably unnecessary, but maybe for aesthetic purposes or to keep the sander from sliding out of the front, I'm just putting a little guard in the front. Just draw it up, eyeball it, and then cut it out on the bandsaw. A little bit of glue, brad nail everything in place. And then here I'm making myself a couple pegs and cutting out a piece of scrap wood, because basically I'm trying to make a handle that will attach to the side. That way I've got a wrap for my cord since I don't have a cordless orbital sander. So this one's pretty simple and obvious, but I just needed a simple holder for my reciprocating saw or sawzall. So basically this is just screwing a couple boards together at a slight angle so that it sits level. So once again I just start by sizing up the saw here with some pieces of scrap wood. And for the jigsaw I'm just going to make a basic L shape for it to rest on. And we'll add a hole for the blade to sit through and some decorative pieces, but you'll see that here in a sec. And here I'm just trying to figure out the placement for the hole so that the blade can sit through and the saw can sit flush. Once I find it, I just give it a little push. That leaves a little indent so I know where to make my drill mark. And then for some added aesthetics and stability, I just find a little piece of trim, cut it down, and wrap the edges, glue, brad nail everything in place.
Okay, so this is fine, but I've still got this cord because I've never got a cordless jigsaw. So I'm going to use this to cut a couple pieces to go here and here on the bottom. I'm going to put a bar across, and then hopefully that'll be a thing that we can wrap the cord around. Let's do it.
Bonus tip, if you're cutting a couple pieces or many pieces and you want them to be the same, I just do a little pencil line right on my saw, cut the first piece, and then move your piece right up to that line you just drew, cut it. Two pieces exactly the same, and you just erase your little pencil line off your saw. Another reason why I'm doing this that I'll just chime in here and weigh in on. This jigsaw was a giant pain to actually get out and put back in the case, especially to put back. So this new method of having it on the wall, ready to use, and just be able to wrap the cord back around when I'm done, way easier than that old stupid case. And speaking of tools that are buried in annoying cases, this is my Kreg Jig. This, like the jigsaw, was always buried in the bottom of my cabinet in a case that actually I think still has the original manuals, building instructions that came with the thing, and I've always got to like pack those back inside the case, and it's like, why? This should be on the wall. So that's what we're doing. I decided to drill a few holes to act as holders for the bits that come with the Kreg Jig, but it didn't really work out as planned.
Okay, so that didn't work. I tried drilling just a shallow hole, but obviously it doesn't really have enough depth for that to sit properly. And I want a stand for these so I don't lose them, so I think I'm going to drill all the way through, and then I'm going to put a bar underneath, an extra strip, and maybe I will adhere some magnets to that strip so that these can kind of lock in place and not just be waving around. Let's try it.
And then here I'm just making some marks and recessing some slight holes using a little bit of CA glue, and then putting in some rare earth magnets that I got off Amazon. Here's another relatively simple one, but very useful. Hammers are one of those things that often end up in a random drawer, and then when you need it, you can't find it. The big point of this French cleat wall was to have everything accessible and not hidden away in a drawer. I can see my tools, and I can grab them whenever I need them. So having a little tiny shelf that holds hammers and makes them easily accessible, super easy, but a super big deal. As you're seeing, the idea here is two side pieces, a front rail that's skinny, and then a top rail that's a little bit wider, but basically that leaves that gap in the middle that you can slide your hammers in through, and then it's super easy to just set them in and pull them right back out whenever you need them. Clamps! What's the old saying? You can never have enough, or too many, or, well, you get it. But anyway, here's a simple way to just put them on the wall. It's one board and two little side boards. You screw those in, and the clamp rests, and it just hangs freely. Should have done this a long time ago, because most of the time these clamps just end up laying all over the floor, especially the long 3 and 4 footers that I have, so yeah, let's hang some clamps. Well, these things have been in a drawer so long that they're still in the packaging. So anyway, like usual, just kind of size things up. Gonna cut down a board, Probably another simple L shape that the chisels can rest in, but then we're going to add a special trick here in a minute that'll make them stick. Rather than just have them sit on a flat board, I do a little bit of measuring so things are even, and then I'm going to drill some holes with the drill press to do a slight recess so that they can rest in there nice. Now that I know where they're going to rest, I do a little bit of marking here to determine where my secret weapon is going to lie, and that will be magnets again. So I do a few more recesses with a bit that didn't entirely drill things out like a Forstner, so a little bit of chiseling, and then I've got a nice flat round hole for a magnet to fit in. Pro tip, when doing epoxy, just lay some painter's tape down, then do your mixing. Lay your epoxy down, place your magnets, and then when you're done, you just peel that tape right off, throw it in the garbage.
Garbage. Oh yeah. Those are good.
Once again, a little bit of trim work for the outside of our bottom shelf. And we just attach our cleat and a little bottom piece that'll rest on the wall, and we're all good. Push sticks, yet another shop tool that ends up, well, all over the place and definitely not where you think they should be. And another tool that I want to put on display because I've made a couple that I think look kind of cool. And I've got a set of Jimmy DiResta push sticks, you know, keep all 10. Definitely want to keep all 10. But the idea here is pretty simple. Just a big backer piece and then a few smaller shelves. A couple to hold the push sticks that I made, one that'll be a little bit longer that'll hold my gripper, and then eventually we'll add a couple dowels to the bottom that'll hold those DiResta push sticks. And here's me being overly cautious and trying to measure out to make sure that these shelves are going to be level. I mean, I still kind of want this to look good, you know. You might have saw some of those smaller cuts I made. For the glue up, this looks a little weird because this is just to accommodate the push sticks that I have. One has a notch in the middle, so really my middle shelf is a long piece and a small piece, and then another push stick I have has a notch at the back, so it's just got one long shelf with a notch on one side. You'll see it once I get on the wall. Alright, my palm router, I don't even have a case for, so this thing just lays haphazardly all over the place. Again, we're going to the simple L shape here. The only difference here is we're going to put a hole in the bottom, so if you're not wanting to recess your bit because you're working on a project and you want to make multiple cuts with that bit in the exact same spot, that way you're going to have a hole in the bottom so that bit can sit through there. The router will still still rest level in the holder.
Alright, so now I want to make a bunch of these so I've got little hooks that I can move wherever and hang things like brooms, dustpans, or whatever. So an easy way to do that is to just take a block, put a cleat on the back, and you can buy these from the store, which work nice and everything, but that gets kind of expensive. So instead of this, we're just going to make some blocks and we're going to drill some holes in and put some dowels in, hopefully at a little bit of an angle so they can hold things better. Alright, let's do that. Alright, so I'm going to use the drill press to drill the holes, but I want them to have a slight angle. And if this is the bottom, I want them to be angled up a little bit. So in order to do that, I need the hole to go in like that. So to do that, this is my little shelf thingy that's got a 2x4 in the vise, so I just will loosen this. I will lift up ever so slightly, lock it in, and now when I drill, instead of being straight, there'll be a slight curve. Hopefully. So obviously we'll shorten these up, but the first attempt kind of worked. It's ever so slight and hard to tell. So I think I'm going to do this just a hair more for the other 4, and should be good. This here is an old one that I made that holds my circular saw. I like this one. I don't really need to remake it, but I'm just going to paint it to make it look like the rest of them.
Look at all those holders. Ready for primer and paint. Let's do it. The primer's pretty rough, so I rub everything down with sandpaper, and then I've got a wet rag handy that I just wipe everything off. For paint, I chose this Rust-Oleum hammered copper finish. I kind of have a rust look going in my shop with my floor, my fridge. Thought this would just look cool. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching the video. If you could please leave a like, that really helps the channel. And if you have any ideas for other French cleat holders that I could make that I haven't done yet, please leave it down in the comments. Always open for more feedback, and I've got a whole bunch more section of wall the rest of the way that I can fill. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. I've got a lot more shop projects that you might be interested in, and I'll have a playlist queued up somewhere for you to watch and check those out. We also do all kinds of fun Star Wars and Marvel type things, so if you're into that sort of thing, follow along. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate it. See you on the next one. Woof, woof.